Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes. I'm Emily Igualdo, and I'm the faculty assistant here at CSE, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So for today's session, you'll be hearing a presentation from Jimmy Cong, ADA Access Specialist in OSD, Office for Students with Disabilities, and Jenn Dandle, Web Manager for the UCSD Library. Jimmy Cong, he's actually right there. He is currently working for the Office for Students with Disabilities, as I have mentioned, as an ADA Access Specialist. Within this role, he creates media for the OSD website and tests accessibility, both around the campus and on university websites. He also graduated in UC San Diego in 2018 with a BA in Music Composition and Visual Arts Digital Media. When he's not working at the OSD, Jimmy can be found DJing weddings, events around the university, and semi-formals as DJ CJ. In the fall of this year, Jimmy plans to apply to graduate school to further his studies as a music composer. Up next is also Jenn Dandle. She's also the web manager for the UC San Diego Library. She recently led the project that completely overhauled the department's website. The goal was to focus on user experience and accessibility for the vast array of users who utilize the tool that are vital to research and student support. She champions accessibility across the UC environment by inspiring others through her service on the Electronic Accessibility Oversight Committee, collaboration with the Office for Students with Disabilities, and her highly anticipated celebration of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. When she is not living out her passions here at work, you can find her enjoying all great things that UC San Diego has to offer, including bombing hills on her skateboard. Please welcome Jimmy and Jenn, who will be speaking to us about inclusive design and accessibility to technology.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for that introduction, actually. It was delightful. So today I would like to talk about specifically how I use technology. And first I want to begin with what type of technology do I use? Well, I prefer to use industry standard technology. By that, the reason why I like to use industry standard technology is because of stability, more support, and more jobs. By stability, I don't mean just it being like stable and not crashing. I basically mean that it's tested by the people in the industry, and so basically there's not many bugs. Therefore, it's more stable, and basically it won't like flake out on me basically during when I'm DJing, if it's at a gig, or when I'm making a film, if it doesn't crash on me basically. Second is, more support. Now, I always give this example. Say, for example, you're at Geisel Library at like 12 a.m. or sometimes even 3 a.m. Doing your homework. Would you rather want to call in to technical support or ask for help from a person that is doing the same assignment in the popular piece of software next to you? So software that is developed without like the general folk in mind usually run into issues where they're a small company, so you won't be able to access their technical support 24/7. And of course, that is a big issue when you want to get an answer at 3 a.m. And the third thing is more jobs. Now, about 70% of blind and low vision people are unemployed. And that is a big number. The reason why it's very important that software is developed with blind and low vision and accessibility in mind is basically, say for example, if a blind or low vision person goes for an interview, an employer rather hire a person that basically knows their software, their setup, rather than using, being able to, like the employer themselves, needing to purchase more software just for this person to do the work that they basically have to do. They'd rather be happy with a employer that knows how to use the software they have in-house, and basically they can like collaborate with the other workers. Now, a good example is music notation software. And because I'm a music composition major, I use notation software all the time. On the left, you see LimeAloud, which is the accessible piece of software, only for Windows though, no Mac compatibility. On the right, you see Finale, which is the most popular piece of notation software, but you can probably guess what I'm gonna say next. There's bad accessibility for Finale. Now, sure, you can input notes with just the keyboard, and you can probably navigate the menus with no problem, like the file menu, the edit menu up top. But the thing is, if you want to input notes, you have to have enough vision to actually click into the staff and actually be able to actually position your mouse in that specific place. Now, with that being said, I would like to give you a quick screen reader demo of basically how I use the screen reader on any device basically. So here we go. Let me turn on VoiceOver.
VoiceOver on Keynote. CSE presentation final window title.
And then let me actually.
Screen turned on.
I'm going to turn off my screen so you can kind of get the idea of basically how I use my my system.
So his screen is mirrored. So he's literally, there's nothing on the screen.
Yeah.
Except the mouse cursor.
Yeah, except for the mouse cursor. And before I actually begin, I'm gonna. So this is my normal speech, like on my computer.
Hi, Keynote, Safari, University of California, San Diego, window, University of California, San Diego, web content task keyboard focus.
So that's pretty fast for anybody. So, but however, the reason why I choose this speed is because I want content here and then, and if it was any slower, it would drive me basically crazy. And so basically, but however, today, in order for you guys to hear what I'm actually doing, I'm gonna slow down the speech actually.
Commander is already on. University of California, 55%, 50% rate. 45%.
There we go.
Trackpad commander off.
So this is the actual default voice speech for VoiceOver. And
University of California, San Diego, web content.
let's dig into UC San Diego's website.
And University of California, San Diego, web content to navigation. Skip to the main content button. Navigation. You are currently on a link. Visit link. Link image. Navigate back to home. Search box, search icon button. Submit button. End of search box, search. Link about. Link visiting and tour. You link history. You link news. You link jobs at UC San Diego. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control, Option, Space.
So as you can tell, this is very linear navigation. Now, let me turn off my screen turn on my screen actually, so you can see what's happening. So basically what's happening is it's navigating, it seems like it's navigating up and down if you're just listening to the audio, but actually it's navigating left and right through the actual menu. And when it's navigating left and right, of course you don't know that. And basically that's how screen readers work. You basically think, oh, it's going on forever and ever and ever and ever linearly. And basically going through each tab like that is so slow, even just for a screen reader user like me. So what we use is we use something called headings lists and links lists. Now, what these are, I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Links menu.
This is a links list. So basically it lists all of the links in the specific website that I'm on.
Visit link. Link. Exit link image. Link. About.
So basically this way, it goes, like I can navigate it way much faster than just going through the website. And then of course headings,
Headings menu.
same thing. So I can jump to a specific heading in the specific like page, and then basically I can start reading there.
Link. Jobs at you.
And then let's go back into Keynote.
Keynote.
There we go. Let me just make sure.
Screen reader demo.
All right,
Voiceover off.
turn off voiceover for the time being. All right, so just to reiterate, screen readers, how do they navigate? They navigate very linearly. There's no spatial recognition. So if something's on the right-hand side of the screen or on the left-hand side of the screen, we won't know. The worst thing is to be like, match up the things on the right-hand side of the screen to the left-hand side of the screen. We don't know. We don't know what's happening. So, of course, we will have issues being able to do that. And then last tip is really important, which is there's no default software accessibility. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, software is not accessible right outside of the box if the developer didn't code it that way. Now, I mention this because I've recently contacted a technical support for a big company, and basically I asked them to basically adopt accessibility into their program. And they actually told me to contact Apple because VoiceOver is the screen reader. And I basically told them, look, Apple gives you the tools, they tell you how to do it, you just have to be the one that actually adopts it. And basically, it will just make it like way much friendlier for any type of user, basically. Now, my next demo I would like to go through is a software demo of the software that I use all the time. So, let me turn on VoiceOver again.
Voiceover on Keynote. CSE presentation final window title.
And before I begin, it says on the slide, but basically, the software I'm going to demo are Final Cut Pro, made by Apple, which is a editing software that I use for my films, and then Serato DJ Pro, which is a program that I use to DJ with. So here we go.
Hide
Keynote.
Keynote. QuickTime Serato DJ Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro.
Okay, so when you first look at this program, you're probably like, how the heck do you make this accessible? This is like impossible. This is like, what? Like, this is a visual program. How are you going to make this accessible? Well, first off, there's a default keyboard mapping on this specific program. So basically, I can navigate every single element of this program with just the keyboard. So say, for example, I wanted to go up to the browser.
Organize your film stream view group.
There's
Final Cut Pro.
a keyboard shortcut for that. Say, for example, I want to go down to the timeline.
Project timeline layout area.
There's a keyboard shortcut for that. Say, for example, let me interact just in case. Say, for example, I want to scrub back and forth through a project. There's an app, there's a keyboard shortcut for that. So that really, really helps. That really helps in terms of navigating software, and especially because this keyboard map is built in to the app, everybody is going to use it. Not even just blind or low vision people. Because, say for example, you are an actual editor, you can't use the mouse because you're going to be dragging stuff and dropping it and then resizing it and all this type of stuff if you didn't have keyboard shortcuts. And that would just take tedious amounts of time away from you since you're a creator. You're not supposed to be able to know the ins and outs of the program. So that benefits basically everyone in the industry. So why is this program so accessible? Well, let me show you the whole timeline here. So the timeline is built kind of like there's like different tracks. There's a couple, like in this specific project, I have like a lot of tracks stacked on top of each other. And VoiceOver reads it from top to bottom. So basically the topmost track all the way to bottom. And it reads from left to right. So first off, the first thing you're gonna hear.
0 hours, 0 minutes, and 43 seconds, 19. Playhead value indicator.
So it's telling me that that's where the playhead is right now, currently. So if I go to the next item.
0 hours, 3 minutes, and 57 seconds, 08. 80 clip, art pieces, layout item. 0 hours, 1 minute, and 8 seconds, 14. 80 clip, entering PC theater, layout item.
So basically you can hear all these clips and basically how I named them. And that is very cool. And it also gives you timestamps. So you know exactly where it is in the timeline. So you can move your playhead there, and if you need to perform an edit, it's really nice and simple because I will know exactly where I'm at in the program. Now, this is an awesome piece of software because I get to do filmmaking whenever I want and without any assistance, basically. Whereas other programs, I'm not going to mention any names.
Adobe. That aren't accessible.
Yeah, they're basically, you need extra help. And what if you don't have that extra help? Well, you're kind of SOL, basically.
Out of project time.
So the next program I want to show you is Serato DJ Pro.
Salon, Keynote, QuickTime, Serato DJ.
So this program looks very simple, right? It kind of looks like an iTunes layout with the songs listed. Now, let's go through and see what it reads to me when I go up and down this list.
You get nothing. It's mystery mix time.
You get exactly nothing. Literally just crickets in the whole room. So, of course, this is not accessible at all. And this would be an easy program to make accessible. And basically, the thing is, nothing reads. So, if I want to go access the help menu to find out what type of keyboard shortcuts that there are, I can't get access to that. If I want to get access to the colorful buttons on the top left-hand side of the screen that are like basically like, you know, that are very important to the program, I can't get access to those. So what I had to do as a DJ is I had to go online, Google basically the keyboard shortcuts, and basically now I learned how to like load it into the track viewer, as you can tell. But still, I don't know what title I'm loading into, what BPM, what key I'm loading the song. So basically it's very, very ambiguous of what I'm doing in the program. So, and the reason why I choose to use this program is because this program is used in the industry. It's been tested. It's not going to crash on you when you're actually at a gig. Trust me, you don't want music to stop during a gig. It's very embarrassing. So that's why I choose to use this program, even though it's not accessible.
Final Cut Cephalari,
So
Keynote.
back to Keynote.
You are current. VoiceOver off.
Turn off VoiceOver for now. Okay, so just to reiterate, linear navigation. Basically, there's no drag and drop. By that, I mean no cool mouse actions. You can't drag anything and drop anything anywhere. There's also no mouse hovering. If you guys used Trenton Link, there's menus on the top of the website that like you can access class history, academic history, all those types of very important things. I can't get access to that because there's no mouse hovering. And that just basically, that's it. The VoiceOver cursor doesn't act as a mouse hovering system. And then last but not least, don't ever use click here.
The worst thing ever.
Yeah, it just doesn't, it's not helpful. The reason why I say this is, remember when I demoed that links list earlier? Say, for example, you're navigating through a page and you hear click here, click here, click here. It's like, what are you clicking on? A virus? What are you need to know what you're clicking on. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Jenn Dandle to talk about basically what you can do as developers and future developers to make your content accessible. Jen?
So now we've all seen, oh, I should turn on this mic since I have it. All right, can everybody hear me okay? All right, so we've all seen how Jimmy uses technology in probably different ways than we could ever imagine. So you might be wondering, well, what can I do about this issue of making sure that we're keeping accessibility in mind when we're doing our work? So you can start by literally just thinking about it and in your daily work, when you're beginning to stand up projects, when you're thinking about work that you want to do, basically including it in your specifications that we want to meet accessibility requirements, and asking questions for software that you're purchasing to use of the vendors. Is your product accessible? Is the output that it generates accessible? There's all kinds of guidelines. We'll provide some resources at the end. So you can all foster a culture of accessibility really just by asking questions and letting folks know that there are users out there who basically use technology adaptively. So you notice that when Jimmy was using the computer, he's not using a mouse at all because he has no spatial data reference. So there might be other reasons why folks choose not to use a mouse, even if they're not visually impaired. But oftentimes, even folks who can see the screen may not be able to interact appropriately if you don't give access through the keyboard to everything. So as Jimmy mentioned, he doesn't get any opportunity for understanding of spatial data. So when you're thinking about how you want to design your applications or your websites, you really want to make sure that you're avoiding complex designs. So keep it simple. This is particularly important when you start getting into layout and responsive design, and so you need to be cognizant of this because your reading order could be out of order. Based on how you lay it out on the screen, it might be read in a different order or lose some context for somebody who's not looking at it. Oftentimes when we get into more complex designs, we're also not really using our heading levels in order. We're introducing things that might come out of order, that kind of things that could cause confusion, particularly for someone who can't see the content. And you really want to make sure in your coding that you are making an effort to label your buttons and your form fields and things like this. So commonly it seems like with forms and tables in particular, those things seem to be the least accessible in terms of they're not necessarily thought about when we're putting together a form that we need to label this form field with our input field and link them together so that the person who can't see it will get those linked information. It's the same thing with our tables and our table headings. So those are things that you can think about in your coding to help things be more accessible. And then just as your project process goes on, basically testing early and often. So each time you have a code review or something like that, each time you add a new feature, does this new feature work with screen readers? Is it accessible? Can you get to it with the keyboard? Short things you can do like that. So accessibility at a glance. So like I mentioned, you can do a quick test with anything. This is a really cool exercise that we'll be doing when we have the Global Accessibility Awareness Day event. It's a no mouse challenge, basically. Take a look at a website or an application or something of that sort and try to use it without touching your mouse. This can be particularly infuriating within about 30 seconds, depending on what you're looking at. So you can imagine if you're struggling with not using a mouse, just imagine if you had other layers of adaptation that you needed in there and what kind of conflict that might cause as you try to do your work. So getting into some of the other details that support some of the ways that Jimmy and other visually impaired users like to navigate. It's very important in particular to use headings to structure your content and to use them in order. So basically, when you think of your content, you think of an outline to outline that content. That's how you would use your headings. The same thing goes for how we use our hyperlinks. So Jimmy mentioned click here is not useful. It's actually one of my most giant pet peeves, and I just compulsively change them everywhere I see them, where I have the power to do so. So when you're using descriptive hyperlinks, not only are you making it easier for folks who can't see the content to know what they're getting, but you're also improving your search engine optimization, because Google is going to rank your hyperlinks higher if they're descriptive and specific. So we're getting a 2-for-1 deal on the things that we do to make things more accessible. We're also benefiting everyone and benefiting the visibility of our site and our contents. Finally, and also very important, you want to make sure that you're describing any images or graphics that you have. So in the code, this would be using alt text, but it's important to consider what you're including in the alt text field. So for example, if you have a pie chart that diagrams out a breakdown of something, perhaps it's the number of different demographic groups that are the makeup of the major or something like that. When you present that information, you need to be specific and just explain what those values and what those parts are in the alt tag, instead of just saying pie chart of major makeup, because then that doesn't tell the information in the image, that sort of thing. So paying attention to detail. And so as you can start to see, this really just requires thoughtfulness of design more than a whole lot of extra work. So accessibility is essential. It's basically my passion to come and speak and share information about how everyone can be more accessible and help others be more accessible. And so it's very, very important. It's essential. It's in many cases, it can be viewed as an add-on or an afterthought or an extra thing. Typically, historically, accessibility has been saved for the end of a project after we have our other features and our other things. And now we're in final phase, pre-launch, and oh man, we haven't thought about accessibility. Now we have to delay our launch in order to do these accessibility things. Does that really happen? No. People end up saving it for later because we don't want to delay our new features or our whatever we're retrofitting or whatever we're gaining from it seems to be more valuable than can everybody get to it. But there's not really too much thought about what we're losing when we don't include everyone. So Jimmy mentioned the opportunity for more employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. This is just becoming more and more essential as a basic right to information, especially in this country. Everything that we do has a digital component at this point. You can't even go get a job at a convenience store without filling out an online application. So not only does this disenfranchise people who may not be able to use technology because of ability status, but it also may disenfranchise people for cognitive reasons, right? So there's all sorts of varying disabilities and different ways that people are using technology, but if you can't use it and you can't get to the information, you're really being left out of some core things. Social media, communication, email, calendaring, sharing, all of these things are happening online. And if the information isn't available for everyone to get to or for everyone to participate in, we're basically leaving out a huge segment of our society. All of these things are also helping people who are not necessarily part of the group that we're looking to help. So yeah, sure, we want to help folks with disabilities who use technology differently, but we're also helping everyone when we make things more accessible. Just like those curb cutouts are really good for that we are required to do by law for persons in wheelchairs, those curb cutouts are great for people with strollers and grocery carts and people on skateboards and everybody. So everybody benefits from this one dimension of this one thing that we did for a group to help them be able to fully participate. So when we think about accessibility in this way, the opportunity to include entire groups of people who may not even be in a position to be able to participate in the world if it weren't for digital. So thinking about how we can really change the world of those people is just amazing. So as I do my talks, I always like to include this quote from Tim Berners-Lee about the power of the web, because I've always loved the web. I love the way the web opens up the world for a lot of people, rural areas, all kinds of access things, it's just so powerful. And so Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web and the director of the W3C, said that the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential impact. And so basically, I like to leave it with that, because even the creator knew from the very beginning that in order for it to be good for everybody, we have to include everybody.
So with that, we would like to go into questions and answers. And before we do that, we want to kind of show off what we actually like to do on our free time.
So we're going to leave that on the screen to inspire you to ask us some questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have 5 minutes, but the thing is, we have a links and resources page. And basically we have Apple's website up there because, they have some good tips up there. We have the library's website about web accessibility. We also have OSD's website. And then if Jen wants to talk about the Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
At the library on May 16th, which is the Thursday, we're celebrating Global Accessibility Awareness Day with basically an awareness fair. It's going to be in the Seuss room from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And so we'll be doing a few different things. We'll have an exercise for the No Mouse Challenge like I described. Jimmy will be there and some folks with IRA, and they'll be demoing some technology that helps visually impaired folks interact in the world more independently using cell phone technology and like Google Glasses type technology. So it's going to be really rad. So if you can join us, we'd love to have you there. And thanks again for coming to our presentation.
Thank you.